Welcome to Are You Quizzing Me? I am Vineet Nair with my co-host Aditya Kashyap. This is a quizzing trivia podcast show. Join us as we dive deep into history, science, pop culture, and so much more. Let's get quizzing. And we're back for episode number 71, prime number. Aditya and I are back for another round of quizzing on your favorite quizzing and trivia podcast show. And we also have Aniruddha Sengupta returning from last week as our guest quizmaster. For those who may have missed last week's episode, please go listen to that. But if you don't have time and it's more polite, I will introduce Annie again. Aniruddha Sengupta, who popularly known as Annie, has been a journalist, communications designer, writer and editor. Apart from other things, he's also currently the consulting editor with Comic Sense, a quarterly comics magazine. He's a true man of letters, master of puns, and one of my favorite quizmasters. He's been kind enough to join us for 2 episodes, and we look forward to another cracking episode with him. But before we do any of that, there is the small matter of the audience question for this week. And it's a straightforward question, which I hope at least some of you will be able to guess by the end of today's episode. So the question that I'm going to ask now as your audience question is as follows. The letter that is never silent in any word in any accent in the English language is which letter? Let me repeat the question. Which letter is the only letter in the English language that is never silent in any word in any accent? I will answer this question at the end of today's episode. So, Annie.
Yes.
We are back for another round. How are you feeling?
Great. Excellent. I think I really enjoyed what we did last time, and I'm looking forward to do more of it this time. Sure.
Great. So, Annie, why don't you start us off with your question?
All right. My first question today is a bit of a long one. So again, a little patience, but things will become clear. So, on being ousted as British Prime Minister in September 2022, Boris Johnson said in his farewell speech, "Like X, I am returning to my plough." He was referring to Lucius Quinctius X, who lived around 520 to 430 BCE, a Roman citizen farmer who, when called upon to help repel invasion by a neighboring tribe, abandoned his plough and led the early Roman Republic to victory. And then, instead of clinging to power and privilege, he simply returned to his farm, thus becoming an emblem of selflessness and civic virtue. Now, fast forward a couple of millennia. In the newly formed United States of America, a group of veteran officers from the Revolutionary War, which is the war against the British, returned to their agricultural pursuits, forming the Society of the Y in doing so, where Y is a Romanized plural of X. The settlement where they did so, originally known as Losantiville, was renamed Y in honor of the society. So what city is Y? So just to recap, Boris Johnson said in his farewell speech, "Like X, I am returning to my plough." He was referring to a Roman citizen farmer, Lucius Quinctius X, who, after leading the Roman Republic to victory against a neighboring tribe, instead of clinging to power, simply returned to his farm and went back to farming, and thus became an emblem of selflessness and civic virtue. In the USA, a group of veteran officers from the Revolutionary War did the same. They returned to their agricultural pursuits after the war was over, forming the Society of the Y. Now, Y here is essentially a Romanized plural of X. X being the name of that gentleman we referred to earlier. So the settlement where they did so was originally named Losantiville, but was renamed Y in honor of the society. What city is this?
Okay, I am going to bow out of this question in the beginning. Annie, I think I've mentioned before that we both have very similar interests when it comes to history. I am an avid listener of the History of Rome podcast. In which there's almost an entire episode dedicated to this gentleman.
Okay.
So I'm going to leave this to Aditya.
All right.
Thanks. Yeah. What? Such a gracious step. Let me see. I do remember this, and I remember reading the news article about how Boris Johnson compared himself to this historical figure. And I know there is an American city named after him as well. I am just, it's the back of my head. I cannot for my life remember what the name of this person or what the name of the city is. Did you mention which state is it in? Not that my American geography is that good, but...
Okay. No, I didn't. I felt that might make it too easy. Should I give you some clues?
Yeah, definitely, please.
All right. So, see, like many Roman names, X ends in the letters US, us, as in Julius or Brutus.
Got it.
So, when they wanted to name the society after themselves, the veterans went with what is often a version of like a pluralization of any Roman word. It doesn't actually apply to names, but they applied it to the name. And so like radius becomes radii and so on and so forth. They simply changed that US to an I. So that gives you an idea at least of what the last letter of the city's name is.
The last letter of the city is I.
Does that help?
No.
Yeah, because that's not a very common ending for a city name. So therefore, I thought that's a possible clue.
Except for Indian cities like Delhi and there's Mumbai.
Yeah, correct. But luckily, this is in the US.
US. Ooh.
There is, of course, several Delhis in the US as well, but yeah.
All right. No, I'm assuming it's a prominent city because I remember it being one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ending with I can't actually think of a single American city.
Shall I give you something more?
Yeah, give me another clue, perhaps.
All right. So I have possible clues in some sociological stuff, in some business things, and in some sports thing. Which area would you like your clue to be in?
I'm not very good at sports, so I'm going to ask you for maybe a business clue.
All right.
Ooh, is it? I was going to say Miami is the only one I can think of right now.
No. Okay. But it's not Miami, no. So my clue, my business-related clue is candle maker William Proctor and soap maker James Gamble set up the eponymous partnership company here. The city continues to be home to the P&G headquarters.
Oh, P&G headquarters. Oh boy, I have so many good friends who work in P&G and hence I've heard this name so many. Cincinnati. My friend was in Cincinnati just now.
That is perfect. It is Cincinnati. The Roman person was Cincinnatus. So
okay.
Yeah,
right.
That's what it is.
Right. Yeah, I remember this, yes.
So Cincinnatus is, as Annie mentioned, very famous for somebody who rejected power. He worked because the kind of contrast you can place between him and Julius Caesar is that Rome had this kind of legal position. I think I've mentioned this on the podcast before. Rome had this kind of legal position that when the city was in danger, they would not rule by consensus. They would Rome would be ruled until the danger was over by a single person, and that was a legal appointment. It was like a magistrate-like appointment. It was a legal appointment. And do you know what it was called?
Yeah, dictator, right?
Yes, it was called dictator. So Cincinnatus is one of those people who was given the position of dictator until the war was over, and then famously went back to be a farmer. But I think in between he was called back again for service after a few years. Right. Julius Caesar is the one who kind of, how do I put this, poisoned the well, because after being declared dictator, he then declared himself dictator in perpetuity. And then became the emperor and whatnot, all those titles that Caesar, the title Caesar came after that. So this, and again, this is an informal recommendation. I think I've mentioned it on the podcast before as well. The History of Rome. It's a fantastic podcast. If you're remotely interested in history, it's just wonderful. So,
all right.
Yeah.
That's a good recommendation. I'll check it out. All right. I'll convert one of my clues into a question. It's a very easy one now.
Okay.
So, the most famous sports team from Cincinnati shares its name with an Indian state. What is it?
Bengals.
Bengal.
Yeah, that is correct. Just the Cincinnati Bengals.
Right.
Because, it's actually named after the Bengal tiger. So, yeah, that's right.
Nice. So, fantastic question, Ani. Aditya, why don't you take over? What's your question?
Okay. Last week you gave us a listicle, Vineet. So here's one thrown right back at you, okay? But I'm going to give you a lot of context to the list as well. But let me just quickly give you the names that are on this list. And it is an exhaustive list. I will not cover all the names. The exhaustive list includes Nelson Mandela, the children of Palestine, Fidel Castro, the children of Iraq, Hugo Chavez, Mahathir bin Mohammed, Daniel Ortega, and the last person was Recep Tayyip Erdogan. So these are people on the list, and the last person on this list is Erdogan. And there are a few more names, but it is an exhaustive list. And right off the bat, any clue whatsoever what I'm referring to? Just in case you know this trivia already.
Nope.
I think they might be the winners of some awardees. I have a vague recollection that there's some award, I don't remember which one, but it's given in the Arab world, and I think that this might be a list of those. Is it?
Oh, wow. You practically almost cracked the question. But yes, all of those things are very true. So just to get to the finish line, let me give you a little bit more context. The prize money awarded is $250,000 US. And if there are multiple recipients, of course, it is shared. And it was given by an international committee, but it was established in 1988 in indebtedness and gratitude for X. So, and that is X, and X is who the prize is named after. So it's the X in prize for human rights, the X International Prize for Human Rights.
This is, you said it started in 1988, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Am I right in that it's from the Arabic world? From somewhere there?
Oh, yes, you are very much right on the mark.
Okay.
Human rights and the Arab world, not two things which go well or hand in hand, but...
It's not Hussein, King Hussein, is it? Of Jordan?
No.
1988 you mentioned, right?
Yeah.
It's a person's name, is it?
Yes.
I think we'll play 20 questions. Is that person from...
No, many times our questions do devolve into that.
Yeah.
You know what? We can do that, and I will help you along over there. But before I say anything, the reason I asked this question, because any other award by in and of itself is not that interesting. The reason this is interesting is because it is very ironic that this award is named after this person.
Oh, okay.
Oh, is it one of the Al Sauds?
No, it's not.
What time frame did you say? 1990s?
1988 is when it was founded.
88. Damn it. I can't.
Neither can I.
Not Arafat, is it? Not
okay,
Arafat, is it?
The last clue I'll give you is that it was discontinued in 2011.
2011. Bin Laden.
No. Bin Laden. Odd for you.
No, I wouldn't be surprised. The Bin Laden family is known for philanthropy.
Yeah.
To be fair, I think this person is probably guilty of a lot more destruction than Laden.
Oh, really?
Whoa. Lot more destruction than Laden.
Yeah.
Wait, is it a historical figure from the Middle Ages?
No. It's very much a contemporary figure.
Oh, okay. Because I was thinking of Salahuddin in between. Wait, lot of destruction, Arab world, contemporary figure, Idi Amin. But then that's not Arab. But he was in Saudi Arabia at the time.
Discontinued in 2011. That should give you a clue.
What happened in 2011?
What happened in the Arab world in 2011?
The Arab Spring.
So one of the, let's say, victims of Arab Spring.
Victims, the Egyptian president, what was his name? Hosni Mubarak.
Mubarak was one of them, but no. Who would be perhaps a bigger tyrant than Mubarak, who went out in the Arab Spring.
Okay, my memory is coming.
I'll help you out with this because basically you had almost gotten it entirely right. It's just the name that was left. It is the Al-Gaddafi International Prize for Human Rights.
Okay. Right. What fun.
And I remember reading that name and I just laughed for 10 seconds straight because I thought that was hilarious. That Gaddafi had an International Prize for Human Rights named after him. That the Libyan People's Congress established in 1988 and discontinued only in 2011 when he was overthrown and died.
Okay.
And yeah, these were the awardees. A bunch of interesting people, some very controversial choices as well. Yeah.
Right. Interesting.
Very interesting. Okay, Annie, back to you.
All right. How can I be left out? I'm going to give you guys a list again. This is a much shorter list and it's also an exhaustive list. With regards to the history of these places, what is this an exhaustive list of? And you can obviously think of many things which might actually be connects, but like I'm saying, you have to tell me what is this an exhaustive list of, okay?
Okay.
So the places, there are 4 places I'm going to name: Agra, Dhaka, Old Delhi, and Chhatrapati Sambhaji Nagar.
Wow. Aditya, what do you think? When in doubt, put it on Aditya's head.
Chhatrapati what? Sambhaji Nagar.
Yeah.
The guy after whom Sambar was named.
That's actually true.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, Chhatrapati Sambhaji Nagar, something that, because I've never heard of it before. Is it one of those recent things where old cities are being renamed?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
I have no idea which cities was renamed to Chhatrapati Sambhaji Nagar.
Yeah,
so
no
I
idea.
don't think that's going to help me either.
It's been a couple of years. But yeah, obviously we almost anyone outside the realm of the kind of people who are making these changes will always refer to it by the older name. So yeah, I mean, what I can tell you, there's not
okay.
much.
So I have a guess here.
All right, good.
Is it named after a person? And these other Agra and Dhaka were also named after that person and were renamed later as well. So were they all like something?
Okay. Is that person Aurangzeb?
No, well, that's not exactly correct, but
Okay,
you're
okay.
almost there. You're almost there, but no, they weren't all named after the same person, but they were all. It is to do with names that they had in the past.
Oh, Mughal emperors? Were they all named after Mughal emperors?
That is correct.
Oh,
Very
okay.
well done. That is exactly right. So Agra was at one point called Akbarabad.
Yes, of course, yeah.
Dhaka has been called Jahangirabad. And in fact, even now, there's a portion of it which is still called Jahangirabad, and there's a Jahangirabad University and stuff like that. Old Delhi, of course, began as Shahjahanabad, and Chhatrapati Sambhaji Nagar, as you guys figured out, is Aurangabad.
Yeah.
So it is, places once named after Mughal emperors. The exhaustive list. Yep.
Okay, lovely question. Vineet, you're up next.
Yes. So I am going to ask you a fairly long question, as always. And this is going to be slightly different from, this is not different from what I ask anyway. Why do I make these segues that make no sense? So, this is the question. Make of it what you will. X is an American playwright, filmmaker, and author. He's won a Pulitzer Prize and received Tony nominations for his plays. He's also been nominated for an Academy Award twice. His style of writing dialogue, marked by a cynical street-smart edge, has come to be called as X-speak. He himself has criticized his and others' tendency to write pretty at the expense of sound logical plots. Often, he declines credit or uses a pseudonym if he is called upon only as a script doctor, or in some films he doesn't direct. The only film that credited him by name was a movie Y, which was a 2001 American psychological horror crime thriller film directed by Ridley Scott and based on a 1999 novel by Thomas Harris. So I want you to identify the playwright X and the only movie that has him credited by name. Why?
Now that's interesting because that
Credited him by name when he was a script doctor.
okay, all right.
Because he has written and directed other movies where his name appears, but he's been a script doctor on many, many films. But many of them don't. He either uses a pseudonym or his name is omitted. But if you go to IMDb, you'll still find his credits.
Okay. Aditya, over to you.
Coming back.
No, okay.
Trope.
I have a guess. Sorry. Yes, Aditya, go ahead.
I was just thinking 2001, and you said American psychological thriller horror. What did you mention?
Yeah, American psychological horror crime thriller film. Directed by Ridley Scott. Based on a 1999 novel by Thomas Harris. I remember pre-ordering this book when it was announced that it would be coming out in 99.
Ridley Scott.
Thomas Harris is the author of Silence of the Lambs, Hannibal, all those books.
Okay, so which one was the 1999 novel?
99, I don't.
Yeah, it's a trilogy, right? The movies are definitely a trilogy. So there is Silence of the Lambs, there is Hannibal, and then there is, I think, is it Red Dragon only? What is it?
Yeah,
Red
no, there's
Dragon.
no Hannibal. There's Red Dragon, and there's something else. I forgot.
No, there is Hannibal as well.
Okay, so
Okay.
you guys have already mentioned it. So it is Hannibal. The movie is
Okay.
Hannibal. In the order of writing the books, it's Silence of the Lambs, followed by Red Dragon, followed by Hannibal. But chronologically in the story, it is actually Red Dragon, followed by Silence of the Lambs, followed by Hannibal. So the movie is Hannibal. That's the only movie where he was a script doctor, where he himself did not write the script. He just, kind of polished it up, where his name has appeared. Now, who's this playwright I'm talking about? Pulitzer Prize winner, Tony nominated, Academy Award nominated. And he has his own adjective in the theatre world, where his kind of dialogue writing, dialogues have been come to known as X-speak.
Wow, very interesting. Never heard of this before.
Yeah. I'm also not very certain, but I don't know. When I first heard the question, I was thinking Aaron Sorkin. It's not him, is it?
No, it's not Aaron Sorkin.
No.
That was going to be my Blue Whale buzzer, because that's where everybody goes to when they hear it. Actually, I was a little worried about putting this question because he's not somebody who's known to the Indian, like in our particular kind of culture and zeitgeist, he's not very commonly known, but he is quite a big name.
All right.
In the West. He's a very big name in the West. I'll give you some of his other works if that helps.
Okay.
So some of his famous plays, actually his most famous play, at least to me, was Glengarry Glen Ross.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
And he's also worked and directed in many other movies, including The Postman Always Rings Twice, The Untouchables, Wag the Dog, Hannibal, American Buffalo, Glengarry Glen Ross, obviously, The Spanish Prisoner.
I'm not sure I'll know him.
Yeah,
not Jonathan Franzen, is it?
No.
I don't really have much of a guess after that.
Same. I'm also out of guesses.
Okay. So then I'll probably give you the answer. I had thought this might be a little, because again, this is one of those indulgent questions that I put, because I saw one of his movies made into a play when I was a kid, and I was just absolutely entranced. It was a movie called American Buffalo. Okay. It's entirely set within a shop, within a junk shop, and it has like just 3 characters.
No.
And there was a movie version of it also. That's the one I saw. So I found it quite fantastic. It was Dustin Hoffman was one of the characters. So that's the reason why. It's actually David Mamet. The playwright I'm talking about is David Mamet. So his kind of dialogue writing is called as Mamet speak. And the term Mamet play is now almost used as an adjective. So when you're describing a play which is very realistic and the kind of street smart dialogue, you might say that, okay, that's like a Mamet play.
Well, I'm glad I've at least heard the names, but yeah, I would never have come up with it for the answer. Good. Nice learning.
Cool. Okay, so Annie, you're up next.
Okay. All right. This is a 3-part question in the sense that it's got 3 questions in it. The oldest municipal body of the Commonwealth of Nations outside the United Kingdom, it was formed in 1688. To begin with, its flag showed the sea, a boat, 2 fish, and the 3 British lions. After independence, the flag was changed to its current form, depicting a fish, a tiger, and a bow. So 3 questions. A, which municipal body is this? It was set up to counter the growing power of which individual? And from where were the symbols currently on the flag derived? So it's the oldest body of the Commonwealth outside the United Kingdom. It was formed in 1688. Its flag initially showed the sea, a boat, 2 fish, and the 3 British lions. But after independence, the flag was changed to its current form, which depicts a fish, a tiger, and a bow. So which municipal body is this? It was set up to counter the growing power of which individual? And from where were the symbols currently on the flag derived? Hit it.
Okay.
The fish and the boat makes me obviously go to a coastal city. And since you said Commonwealth, I'm also inclined to guess, just because it's the 3 of us, it's an Indian city. That would probably be a safe
That's correct,
bet.
yeah.
An Indian city, a coastal city. So Kolkata would be my first guess.
I would actually be going towards, because I've recently in the past few months actually reread Ponniyin Selvan. So in Ponniyin Selvan, the Pandya kingdom has the fish as their emblem, and the tiger is that of the Chola kingdom. I don't know if the bow is related to any other Tamil kingdom, but 2 out of 3 is a good fit. So Madras or Chennai?
That is correct. It was called the Madras Corporation, now the Chennai Municipal Corporation.
Okay.
And you got C also covered. You answered the symbols part. So yeah, it is the Pandya, Chola, and Chera symbols.
Chera, okay. The Chera is the bow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that leaves, which now should be quite easy, that it was set up in 1688 to counter the growing power of which individual?
Which individual? 16, is it? That's a little too early for Hyder Ali or Tipu Sultan, isn't
Yeah.
it? So,
Yes, it is.
1688, that time, I think that area, it would be the French, but it's too early for Napoleon either, because the Napoleonic Wars were in the 1800s. So, which individual?
Yeah. There's someone very closely connected with Madras, whom you do know him very well.
Okay.
So, he's not Indian.
Oh, okay. I was just going to say, is it Indian?
When you say not Indian and a danger to that place, I would have guessed Clive of India, but then this being set up by the British, I don't think that's the case.
No, he's not a danger to the place.
Okay.
It was his growing influence that they were trying to sort of counter.
1683. I'm trying to remember who were the regional players at that point. Travancore wasn't a huge threat because that was in the mid 1700s for Marthanda Varma. The Nizam of Hyderabad was already, I think, there, but then I don't think if that's the case, they have to put him up.
Not an Indian, like I said.
Not an Indian, yeah, sorry.
Yeah. I mean, you know his surname. I mean, you know him for sure, but everyone knows his surname because of something he set up far, far away.
Oh, is this Elihu Yale?
That is correct. Yeah, okay. He was the governor of Madras at the time, and he had started really gaining power. So the British decided, okay, we need to do something about it. And they set up the municipal body as a counter to his kind of growing influence. So that's what the second was, yeah.
Oh, nice.
All right. Well done. Cracked it all. Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I like that question. I really like that question.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think it's, again, pretty, it's workoutable. It's not really something you will need to know like you did. You knew what the fish, the tiger, and from a very interesting source, right? I mean, Ponniyin
Selvan is one of my favorite novels. I've reread it like at least 4 times in the past 20 years.
Wow.
It's a huge thing to go through, but it's just fantastic. It is fantastic. I recommend it to everybody and everybody I see. But it's very difficult to get people to read it when they realize it's so many volumes and there are so many hundreds of characters. But it's fantastic.
Do you read it in English or?
Yes, I don't know how to read Tamil, so I read the English translation.
All right, okay. And is a good translation available? Because
Yes, there's a one available. So I use my Kindle Unlimited subscription. There's one you can get for free on that. So that's what I use to read it. It's a decent translation. But then I also have a little exposure to Tamil as a language. I can understand how it's spoken. So when I read the translation, I can kind of get what it's supposed to mean. So the certain nuances can be filled in by the blanks. But even if you don't, it's a fantastic translation. I don't remember the translator's name, but I remember the cover of it it's a white cover with a colored outline of a few Chola buildings as the cover. It's a fantastic translation. I recommend it to everybody. I'll make it my pop culture recommendation. Ponniyin Selvan, please read it.
All right. What do you think of the movies?
The movies were good, but I don't know, they lost something in translation a little bit, because I think it's when you read the novel and it's so epic in scale that you would probably require a 10-episode series of 1 hour each to capture that scope. When you're having just 2 movies of 2.5 hours, it just doesn't do it.
Okay.
Because there are so many tiny things which happen, which makes a lot of sense and affects the plot, which they completely ignored. Now, Mani Ratnam did a great job, because Ponniyin Selvan, for I think around 50 years, they said it would be unfilmable. Shivaji Ganeshan tried it. A couple of other people tried it. Mani Ratnam's been trying it for the past 20-30 years to try and get it to be filmed. But either way, they did a decent job, and the music is fantastic. The second part, the death of Aditya Karigalan, is done beautifully in the movie. But overall, I felt that the scope was a little lacking.
Right. Yeah.
That epicness didn't come out the way I wanted it. But then that's always the case when you read a book before you watch an adaptation.
Yeah, exactly. So not having read the books, I did watch, I watched the first one. I intend to watch the second one at some point. And I thought it was interesting. I mean, it kind of drew me in quite a bit. So, and the only problem is with a lot of these Indian things is that the SFX is so poorly done that it sort of really turns you off, But
this is decent. This was decent. Compared to the budget, it is decent.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I have a follow-up question. I mean, so I'll just quickly run that by you guys. It's an easy-ish one. So talking about independence, which is the only country in Africa that doesn't celebrate an Independence Day, and why?
It's a follow-up to this question you mentioned, right?
No, it's follow-up to the extent that it's an independence. We talked about it. The independence here. That's all. Nothing else connects up.
Okay. So is it because it's never been colonized?
That is correct.
Okay.
So which country?
I remember reading a list of countries which have never been colonized, but for the life of me, cannot remember it right now.
Okay.
Is it Liberia? Is it Liberia?
No.
Liberia was formed by freed slaves from the US.
Yeah. That's what I thought. Yeah. So not colonized, I guess.
So basically, it's that's true. Actually, you could say it was, but I think it. Anyway, I don't know enough about that history. So, but the kingdom's army famously defeated the Italians at a battle, and that's how they repelled the possible colonization.
Defeated the Italians, so it's North Africa, or at least the Horn of Africa, because Italians didn't go deep or to the west, as far as I know.
Exactly, the Horn of Africa.
Ethiopia, then?
Yeah, that is right, Ethiopia.
Oh, okay.
Ethiopia's never been.
I thought the Italians had colonized Ethiopia.
No, they colonized a part of it, which was Eritrea, basically, which became Eritrea later.
94,
Ethiopia,
I think.
Ethiopia itself was never colonized.
Oh, okay. Nice.
In fact, that battle, I've forgotten the name of the battle now, but it was one of those, landmark things where a European power was sort of defeated by an African country. I don't think there was any other case that happened.
Yeah. It was not. There is a similar parallel, I think, in the mid-1700s in India. The first time an indigenous army defeated a European power was at the Battle of Kolachal, where the Dutch were defeated by Martandavarma's army. Interestingly enough, they were called the Nayarpada. So,
The lions are taking over.
Okay. Aditya, your turn.
Okay. So, wow, those were some great questions. And I guess I'll use the segue of a battle. And talking about battles and warriors, I'm going to talk about the possible origin of an item X. And this is back in 1637, and I might be mispronouncing the name, but Cardinal Richelieu from France is credited with coming up with X or innovating to give us X. Cardinal Richelieu was irritated by the brutish behavior of men at the dining tables of the time. So these were the men who were perhaps in armies or had weapons upon them. And he was very irritated by the brutish behavior that these men brought to the dining tables, the dining halls that they would be eating in. So he decided, just for both hygienic purposes and for, I guess, the keeping the class of the place intact, he decided to innovate slightly on something. And it gave us something very prevalent in the modern world. What is it that Cardinal Richelieu, the French cardinal, came up with in 1637?
I love the way any of us, when we come across a French word or name,
yeah.
the way we have to say it.
Richelieu.
But yeah. So, I do have a guess. Vineet, anything you want to say?
I actually also do have a guess because I have read this. I had recently asked a question to Aditya on the Three Musketeers and the works of Alexander Dumas. So while I had gone down that particular rabbit hole, I had come across this. So,
So shall I give it a go?
Yes, Annie, please go ahead.
Because mine's a very broad guess. So is it the fork?
Oh, very close.
Close, very close, but it's not the exact answer.
Okay. So the spoon. Very close to the fork.
I cannot give you a third attempt, Annie, at this point, because that is basically the answer. You'll get it right there.
Damn it. There were three possibilities and I got two. And third was last. So then I will say it is a plate. Sorry,
yes.
take it away.
No, I'm kidding. It is in the plate, but as Annie has rightly said, there were three possibilities, and the third one is the right one. It should be the table knife. Vineet, do you want to venture a little bit of a guess and tell us a little bit about it, whatever you know?
So Richelieu, basically Cardinal Richelieu, is the guy that we see as the villain or the antagonist in most of the Alexander Dumas romances regarding the Three Musketeers. So what happened, if I remember correctly, is that in those days before Richelieu devised or actually he standardized the knives, that people would bring whatever they had at hand. Right. So some of them would be having like bigger knives, some of them smaller knives. I think some of them had like, they brought their own kind of sheath daggers also. Certain kings were also known to use daggers at the table. And Richelieu, famously being very fastidious, decided to standardize cutlery. I don't think he invented the table knife. He standardized the table knife, but they call it like that, he invented modern kind of eating and etiquette with a knife and fork.
Okay,
interesting.
So that is very, very close to the actual answer that I was going for. I think the point was that there were a lot of daggers and different size knives that were being used. And Richelieu was very irritated by that. So people would be using the daggers to eat the meat and stuff as well if they did not want to use their hands, or would be stabbing that or planting that into the table itself, which annoyed and irritated the cardinal.
But looked very cool.
It depends if you were not cleaning it up later with just random knife marks all over your table. Yeah. There was also another habit that irritated him, was the people trying to pick their teeth after the meal was done using the sharp end of the knife. So what he did was he insisted that knives had their tops rounded off. So make them blunt in a way at the top, which would ensure that nobody could pick their teeth with those knives anymore. And that was the innovation that Richelieu brought to our culinary world. and how he changed the table knife.
Nice. Good fun up.
Aditya, fantastic question. Let's go to Annie back again. Baton to you.
All right. I think this might be a bit easy, but anyway. The word X was originally used to describe a person or state that made offerings to a more powerful person or state. Ancient China, for instance, had dozens of X states, with the emperor regularly receiving elephants from Siam or young girls from Korea. The usage with which we are more familiar comes from the similar way in which a smaller geographic entity offers a part of its wealth in like double quotes, to a larger one. So what is X? Originally used to describe a person or state that made offerings to a more powerful person or state. We are more familiar with it in the usage where it refers to a geographic entity, a smaller one offering a part of its wealth, so to speak, to a larger one.
So I have worked something out, but I'm not sure if it's right.
Okay.
Aditya, do you have a guess, or should I go ahead?
I was going to say tribute, but...
Okay, I was going to guess vassal state, or vassal.
So in the context of the question, what would the geographic entity be? Vassal is not correct, but Aditya is almost there.
Oh, geographical entity. Then, Aditya.
Tributary.
Exactly. Yeah, that's correct. So they were tributary states or tributary people, the people who actually made the offerings, and then it became part of the geographic thing of a tributary being a river, which offers a part of its wealth, which is its water, to a larger one. So yeah, tributary is correct.
Nice.
Well done.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah,
nice, Aditya. Well cracked.
Okay. I will pat myself on the back for that.
Yeah, so I had a couple of other little bits of information if you're interested.
Yes, always.
There's a river called the Irtysh, which is in northern Siberia. It's the longest tributary in the world. It runs a length of 4,248 kilometers and merges with another river called Ob, which then flows into the Arctic Ocean. And that's the longest tributary in the world, which I thought was an interesting fact, because we've never heard of this river, but that's what it is. Yeah.
Right.
Even the Missouri is one of the longer tributaries.
Oh, the Missouri is a tributary, isn't it? It's not like a river in itself?
I mean, tributaries are effectively rivers in themselves also, because what is the longest tributary in India?
Yamuna, I guess.
Yamuna is correct. Yeah, so one would consider Yamuna as an independent river, but it's also a tributary because essentially it goes and merges with another river rather than flowing into a sea or whatever. Yeah.
Okay, so I understand the distinction now. Okay.
Yeah.
So the Missouri feeds into the Mississippi then?
Exactly, yeah. That's what it does, yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Nice.
All right, great. I'm glad I cracked one at least, because I was pretty much sitting this one out. It was Vineet and his history and all of that was taking charge. But I'm glad I got at least the geography down. Vineet, how about you?
Right.
Do you want to give us the last question for this episode?
Yes. So I have a question which is very workoutable if you pay attention. And by paying attention, I mean really pay attention. Okay? So fair warning, here it goes. Have you heard of constrained writing?
Yes.
Okay. Annie, do you want to tell the audience what constrained writing is?
Essentially, it's writing where you sort of, you put some conditions on what you can and can't do. For example, the novel Gatsby, which is written entirely without an E, so stuff like that.
Yes, you're absolutely right. So constrained writing is a literary technique in which the writer is bound by some condition that forbids certain things or imposes a pattern. Like almost all kinds of poetry have formal constraints in both mainstream and experimental work. So familiar elements of poetry like rhyme, meter are often applied as constraints. Well-established verse forms like sonnets, sestinas, villanelles, limericks, haiku, these are all variously constrained by meter, rhyme, repetition, length, and other characteristics. Right.
Wow.
So, like Annie mentioned, there are entire novels where people have written it without an E, or they have rewritten up the Bible using anagrams of original words in the Bible. So that kind of thing. So when you're writing it with some kind of restriction or which is imposed on your writing pattern.
Hmm.
I'm going to ask you about one specific book. The author's name is Michael Keith. And the book is called Not Awake. Not Awake. W-A-K-E. Now I'll read you a line from that. I think it's the first, this is how the book opens. So I'll read you the line. And the answer is in this line and in the title. And I want you to see if you can figure out what the constraint is. Okay? So this is how it opens. Now I fall. A tired suburban in liquid in under the trees, drifting alongside forests, simmering red in the twilight over Europe. What's the constraint that the author has used?
I know this one.
Oh, great. Okay, so then Aditya, struggle alone.
The famous examples I remember of constrained writing in novels is usually like avoiding a letter and stuff like that. In this case, I can't think of a letter that has been skipped. So I'm assuming it is some other form of
No, I can tell you that all the letters are used in this book, in this particular book. All letters have been used, of the alphabet have been used. There is no constraint regards with the letter.
Could you repeat maybe some of the section that you read again?
Now I fall. A tired suburban in liquid in under the trees. Like, forget the rest of it. Just focus on that. Now I fall. A tired suburban in liquid in under the trees.
I was going to say it's like only one syllable each, but suburban obviously is not.
Can I give a clue?
Yes, please.
I think this may be a bit of a giveaway, so sorry, Vineet, but yeah.
No issues.
So, this would be great if this episode aired on 22nd July.
Okay, that's a very good clue.
22nd July. Oh, now I... what? Fall. What is it?
Now I fall.
Fall. Tired. Yeah. Okay. Is it all the pi digits?
Yes.
Wow.
So this blew my mind when I heard about it. So the book, it's called, the full name of the book is Not Awake, a dream embodying pi's digits fully for 10,000 decimals.
Yeah, crazy, man.
So it encodes the first 10,000 digits of pi with text composed in various literary styles. So for our audience, just to keep you, to make you understand. So when you say now I fall, now has 3 letters, I has 1, fall has 4, A tired suburban, then you have 1, 5. So you're looking at 3.1415 and so on, going up to 10,000 digits of pi. The entire book was written in concordance with the first 10,000 decimals of pi.
Oh man, wow, that is insane.
I cannot even imagine the kind of brain required to do that.
Yeah. Or the obsession required to do it, man.
Exactly. My God. And I looked up this fellow, Michael Keith. He was an engineer. He's worked at Intel at some point and all. So he was an engineer, and he's done multiple types of these constrained writing. So apparently he wrote one with pi up to 700 something digits, and then he went, one-upped himself and went with pi with 10,000 digits.
Wow. Crazy.
It's crazy fellow, but I'm like, wow, that is he's a different breed altogether.
Seriously. Yeah.
You know what I would, if I was writing this book at some point, at a few points in this novel, just to mess with things, put the wrong digit in, just to see if anybody's paying attention. Like the 3,600th digit.
Yeah. See, the point is, so a book like this is not really meant to be read, right? I mean, no, it has no real I mean, it hasn't something that people would want to read it for. It's just a bit of a novelty thing, no?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, I wouldn't pick this book for its literary value. I'd pick this book so that I could tell people I have a book on my shelf which has pi to 10,000 digits.
Exactly.
Fair enough.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, like, you really have to admire the guy for his fortitude.
Seriously, yeah. Perseverance.
Perseverance, yeah, exactly. Okay, so that's all the time we have for our regular questions this week. So let's start winding up. And let me start off with answering the audience question, which I had asked at the beginning of today's episode. So the audience question was, which is the only letter in the English language that is never silent in any word in any accent? So do you guys know what the answer is?
Sounds to me like it should be Q. Q is always pronounced as far as I can think.
No, that's not... No, Q can be silent. There is only one letter, yeah.
Okay.
Q is actually a pretty good guess because I can't, even off the top of my head, think of a word that doesn't have the word Q pronounced.
Are you queuing me? No, I can't think of anything else. Or a K?
No, it's not a K. So I'll give you an example of where Q is silent. Lacquer. LACQUER.
Right. Okay, yeah, you're right. Okay.
Very interesting.
And K, there are numerous examples of K being silent.
K, so there are so many. Yeah.
K, especially the beginning of the word, is very often silent.
Exactly, yeah.
Like knife. Okay. Anyways.
Knife, knowledge, night. Okay, I'll give you a clue. And this is practically a giveaway. The fact that this letter is never silent makes sure that my name is always pronounced correctly. Or at least starts off correctly.
I wonder what the letter is. Man, that is...
So we then.
Yeah, so you're right. It is V. There are no words with a silent V. This is the only letter in all accents that refuses to be silent.
Wow, nice. We need.
Yes,
we need question. Okay, so it's back and time for our pop culture recommendations. Annie, as our guest, why don't you go first, and what's your pop culture recommendation for this week?
I'd mentioned in the previous episode that I'm a big fan of detective fiction, and one of my favorite long-running series is the Bosch novels by Michael Connelly, which have also been made into a very good OTT show where 2-3 seasons of the show have come out so far, called Bosch. And in fact, it's also led to sort of not a spin-off, but continuing episodes under the name Bosch Legacy. So that's one thing I strongly recommend people watch. The series is great, and the books are also really lovely if you like to read. And the other thing I'd like to just quickly say is that I'm a writer, and obviously a writer has to also be a reader, and you tend to end up writing, or at least be influenced by some of your favorite writers. And so I have 3 favorite writers whom I want to mention. Kurt Vonnegut is one of them. I really love Kurt Vonnegut's work. Then Thomas Pynchon. Thomas Pynchon has a very interesting history. And Italo Calvino. These are three novelists whose work I really enjoy reading. So if you are into, and if you have access to these, please read them. They're very good.
For our audience, Annie, is there one book from each author that you would recommend as a gateway to their collective works?
All right. So Italo Calvino, one of what I like about his work is that he really works with the structure of the book very interestingly. So he does all kinds of neat little tricky things with the structure of his books. And one of the books I recommend on that is Mr. Palomar. Mr. Palomar is a book of short stories. In fact, it was the first book of his that I read, where the whole book is basically, it has 9 stories, and it's divided into 3 books, meaning 3 chunks of 3 stories each. And within each set of 3, the 3 stories follow a certain pattern, and that pattern is then repeated across the 9, in the sense that the first 3 have a certain feel to them, the second 3 have a certain feel to them, and the third 3 have a certain feel to them, which is reflected in those individual trios as well. So, Mr. Palomar by Italo Calvino. Kurt Vonnegut, there are many, many books which are amazing reading. I guess if I were to recommend one, it would be Breakfast of Champions. It's a great book. And one of the things about Kurt Vonnegut's books is that it's kind of somewhere between social satire and science fiction, and he kind of weaves back and forth in these themes very interestingly. And Thomas Pynchon is a much more, say, inaccessible writer. It's difficult you need to persevere to get through his books a bit, but I find his use of metaphor and all amazing. And his most famous book is Gravity's Rainbow, and that's the one I would recommend anyone who wants to read his books start with. Now, one interesting thing about Pynchon is that nobody knows what he looks like. He's never appeared in person anywhere. And there are these massive cult followings of his in many places, in particularly in universities in the US. So there is one university, I forget which one, which he's supposed to have attended that university as a student. And so students of that university have these annual readings of Gravity's Rainbow, where they read the entire book in a public setting in a relay form. One person will read 10 pages, the next person will read the next 10, and so on and so forth. It's quite a thick book. And there are these marathon reading sessions of his book. And there is this, that he's always at those readings. It's just that nobody knows that he's there.
That adds to his mystique.
Exactly, yeah.
Nice. Aditya, what's your recommendation?
Is Pynchon the same guy who also wrote Inherent Vice?
Yeah. No.
Inherent Vice is Pynchon?
Yeah, Inherent Vice, I think is Pynchon. I'm not 100% sure. It's not Thomas. Yeah, it is Pynchon. It is Pynchon, yeah.
Ah, yes. Okay. I haven't read the book, but I've seen the movie and I remember reading the name there. Yeah. Okay.
The Paul Anderson film.
Yeah.
Joaquin Phoenix. Right, that one.
Joaquin Phoenix, yeah. Actually, that brings me to my pop culture recommendation. I'm going to give a few this time around. Because we mentioned Inherent Vice. Of course, there's Joaquin Phoenix. It's an interesting movie. I won't call it a great movie. It's an interesting movie. It does have an actress that I love, and she's been in a bunch of other films, and I think she's criminally underrated. So her name is Hong Chow. Hong Chow has, I think she's born Vietnamese and, of course, now is an American actress. So I would recommend just watching Hong Chow's films and just watching it for her performances. I loved her in the HBO limited series Watchmen, a great limited series, definitely worth checking out. She's also in the movie The Menu, a great film as well, a black comedy film. She is also, I think I've already mentioned in the past, BoJack Horseman. She's there in Downsizing. She's in Downsizing as well. She has a very small cameo in the How I Met Your Mother TV show as well. So all in all, basically my pop culture recommendation is an actress, Hong Chow. So go check out Hong Chow's work. She's done some phenomenal work. My next recommendation is actually a YouTube channel. The YouTube channel that I'm going to talk about is Cracking the Cryptic. I have phases in my life, and Sudoku is one of those phases that keeps recurring in my life. And Cracking the Cryptic is a YouTube channel which does a lot of Sudoku type of puzzles, specifically Sudoku as well. And they do some very fancy Sudoku puzzles. So if you are even remotely into that kind of stuff, I would say go check it out. If you are somebody who solves Wordle and connections on New York Times still, that is worth your time. The final two recommendations are actually Instagram accounts. And the first one is Reading Room India, which is actually by my friend. And it has a fair bit of following already. So if you haven't seen it yet.
Wait. Stop the presses right there. Reading in Room India. Your friend runs Reading Room India. I devour that channel.
Oh, it is a fantastic, channel. She is the one who runs it. And a great work all around. And so that is my first recommendation in case you haven't checked out. And the second one, which is much smaller, which is much more recent, but is by one of my favorite people. His name is Shiv. He created this Instagram channel called fixing.education. So education is something that he dearly cares about. So this channel is devoted to talking about education problems in India, about how the system might be broken and how we need to fix it and things along those lines. So yeah, these are the 4 things I would recommend. Hong Chow, the actress, Cracking the Cryptic YouTube channel, Reading Room India Instagram page, and fixing.education Instagram page.
Neat.
Nice. I just want to also kind of add on to his recommendation of Reading Room India. I've been following that channel for some time now. They do a great job in delivering news and trivia. I have actually a lot of points for questions from their channel, which I now realize I must avoid asking on this podcast because Aditya is has an inside track to that channel. So then thank you for telling me that. Now I'll have to weed out those questions. So my pop culture recommendation, I've already mentioned in this episode. I'm going with those two because those two will take time for you to go through. The first, as I mentioned, is a podcast. It's available on Spotify. It's called The History of Rome. It's a fantastic series. It's one of the older podcasts. I think it ended maybe around 7 or 8 years ago. But the podcaster who did the show, he went through every single phase of Rome in detail. And if you're somebody like a huge history nut like me who can listen to history podcasts for hours and hours on an end, it's the perfect fix for you. So that's my first recommendation. And the second recommendation is, as I mentioned before, Ponniyin Selvan, which again is a historical fiction novel by Kalki Krishnamurthy. It released in the 1950s, and I would say it is one of the best novels per se to come out of Tamil literature or even in Indian literature. It ranks right up there. It's a fantastic novel. It is a bit lengthy. It's around 5 books or 5 volumes of it. And the cast of characters is huge. But what really attracted to me was the writing itself, the description of the Chola Empire. You actually feel like you're in the midst of the action itself. And the second thing I love about it is, even though it's historical fiction, it's based on actual fact. There are certain mysteries of what happened during a certain period in the Chola Empire, and that forms the basis for it. And there is politics, love, war, violence. It has everything. If you love Game of Thrones, this is like a superior version, I believe, of Game of Thrones because it's actually based on actual history. So that's my second recommendation, Ponniyin Selvan. There is an English translation available on Amazon, on Kindle. So there's no excuse for you not to try and read it. So that's my recommendation for this week.
Very interesting.
So that's all for this episode. Thank you guys for listening in. I'd like to offer my and Aditya's thanks to Annie or Aniruddha Sengupta, if you're going to be more formal, for spending a lot of his time in recording these 2 episodes with us, even though he's quite a busy man. So we really enjoyed the show with you, Annie, and I hope it wasn't too painful of an experience for you either.
No, thank you so much. I mean, this was really interesting. It's a completely new experience and I really loved it. Thank you.
Great. So then I'll put you on the spot and say that we will be calling you back at some point.
Sure. That'll be good.
Okay. Right. Great. So thank you, our audience, for supporting us, for listening in. We hope you enjoyed the show. You learned something new, because I certainly did. If you liked what you heard, please consider subscribing to our podcast. Leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform, wherever you're listening to us right now. Just take 2 minutes after my spiel to hit the subscribe button to give us a 5-star review, because that helps us reach a wider audience and allows more people to discover and enjoy the show. We'd also love to hear from you. Feedback, suggestions, trivia, questions you want asked on the show. If there are any such questions, you can send a mail to us at areyouquizzingme@gmail.com with the name of the quizmaster in the subject line. You can also reach us on Instagram at areyouquizzingme, We also have a community subreddit on Reddit, which is r/ruquizzingme. You can go there and post whatever you want. We appreciate your support and look forward to sharing more episodes with you in the future. Thanks again for tuning in. Have a great day.
Thank you, Annie, and see you guys next week.
Thank you. Bye.